Okay, planning board. Good evening. You are live. You are recording. Phone lines are open. You're good to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to the December 8th, 2021 meeting of the East Hampton Town Planning Board. Just to let you know right up front, this was supposed to be our final
recording in progress.
Keep going, please. Keep going.
This is supposed to be, or was originally intended to be, the final meeting of the year, but our agenda, things got a little hectic and we need to add one more meeting. So we'll have that on December 15th. So welcome to the second to the meeting of the year. We have a few matters on for subdivision, one matter on for subdivision review, a few matters on for site plan review, and a couple of resolutions. So with that, we will begin with the Bayberry Estates subdivision review. Marco, you're the point person on that. Ian, you've got the responsibility for the board. And who's the applicant's counsel or advisor?
Ann Weaver.
Oh, okay. So Weaver,
Hold on just a second. Hold on. We need to let in, I think now's a good time to let in anyone that's in the waiting room.
Oh,
Doing that right now.
Very well. Thank you, Michael. Good evening, board members. How are you all?
We're well. You?
Very well. You've got a new fuzzy thing behind you now.
I discovered a new feature. You can blur the background.
Yes.
And Lou, I followed you.
Oh, yeah.
You're also blurry.
I saw that last time. I'm like, good idea. See my husband walking around and see
I'm conventional and just parked in front of a bookcase. So,
or you can remain parked in front of the bookcase, but you can blur that bookcase.
Yeah, no. What's the point? It's funny. I think that more people have the Power Broker on their bookshelf, judging by Zoom conferences and Teams conferences. This is the wrong bookcase. I would have it in a different bookcase. Not this particular.
I've looked up a few of your books there.
Oh, have you? No.
Call It Sleep.
Call It Sleep is a
great, interesting one.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It really is. It was left quite an impression on me at a younger age, and I still have it. So. Are we? Do we have anybody else? Are we ready yet, Michael? Still letting people in.
No, everybody should be in. Everybody should be in, Sam. Thank you.
Rick Whalen and Elizabeth Vale.
Everybody's in, Sam. Sam, you're frozen.
Looking for him there. Okay, he's muted, but I see him on the screen there. Okay, very good. Marco, why don't you lead us in Bayberry?
Okay. So this is an open space subdivision to subdivide a 746,000 roughly square foot parcel located in Wainscott into 3 individual lots, with 70% of the parcel to be dedicated as reserve area. The parcel is zoned A5 residence, is under the water recharge overlay district. It is currently vacant and nearly 100% uncleared of naturally occurring vegetation. In a 1962 aerial, it appears that an area had been cleared for residential development. However, it is not clear that a residence was ever constructed. The neighboring properties are also zoned A5 residence and are nearly all developed with single-family residences. The parcel immediately abuts recreational open space at its eastern end, and there are large tracts of preserved land to the west on the opposite side of Wainscott Northwest Road, primarily owned by the town of East Hampton in Suffolk County. So on the screen at the moment is just highlighted in teal is the subject parcel, and parcels that are in dark green are recreational open space. So the habitat mix is primarily a characteristic of South Fork pine barrens with a canopy of mixed oaks, pitch pine, and white pine. The understory is primarily low bush blueberry and bayberry. It is also located in the Suffolk County Pine Barrens, Groundwater Management Zone 5, and the town's Water Recharge Overlay District, all of which are designations identifying the parcel's important groundwater protection and recharge to the town's sole source aquifer. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. It is recommended that the planning board declare lead agency. The application needs to contain an EAF Part 1, which should be supplied by the applicants at this time. The applicants have submitted a yield map, which verifies that the requisite lot area is available for 3 lots. However, pursuant to Section 220-1.06 of the Town Code, the yield map needs to depict a standard subdivision map, which includes a 10% reserve area. It should still be possible for the property to yield 3 lots, but a revised yield map should be submitted. The town code requires that 70% of the property in A5 residence shall be preserved as open space, especially if it is located within a water recharge overlay district. It appears that has been provided, although in the reserve area notation, the reserve area extends from the property. The reserve area extends from the front of the property and around the proposed lots to the rear of the property and around the access road. The design of the reserve area provides for buffers of about 110 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet in the front and west of the parcel along Wainscott Northwest Road. I'll just zoom in a little bit further. So to the left would be Wainscott Northwest Road. This map does depict topography. Slopes over 20 degrees are in red. Slopes between 15 and 20% are in green. A majority of the reserve area is proposed. The board should discuss whether or not these buffers are adequate with consideration of visibility from the town roadway and adjacent residential properties. The majority of the reserve area is proposed towards the eastern part of the property. Majority of the steep slopes are also located in that portion as well. And this area is also abutting existing recreational open space. The planning department agrees that this is the most appropriate location for the majority of the reserve area and preserved open space within the subdivision, and the board should determine if they agree. Should be noted that small portions of over 20% slopes are present at the lot line between lots 1 and 2 on the southern end of proposed lot 2, which is the one in the middle, roughly where my cursor is, and on proposed lot 3. Section 220-1.06 Part H prohibits areas of over 20% slopes from being utilized as buildable area. It's recommended that these lots be provided a building envelope which illustrates buildable areas, and that the map should be amended to include these envelopes. The site will need to utilize private wells for each lot or extend public water nearly a mile up from Wainscott Northwest Road from the south. It's assumed that it would be utilizing private wells. Additionally, all the neighboring properties contain both private wells and individual sanitary systems, which require minimum setbacks from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. It appears there is ample room to place the wells and sanitary systems on each of the lots. The location of the neighboring wells and sanitary systems should be illustrated on the map to verify that is the case. Each proposed lot has been provided a 20-foot wide flag strip to Wainscott Northwest Road. Although it is assumed the applicants will intend to utilize a single common driveway, the board should require that at this time. The location of the access point appears to be generally in the flattest portion of the property. The planning department finds this to be the most appropriate location. It is noted that, however, that this portion of Wainscott Northwest Road contains a number of bends and changes in elevation. It does not appear, though, that there is a superior location with regards to site distance. The site is situated in an area that is identified as archaeologically sensitive by the New York State. It has been in the past practice of the board to require a stage 1A archaeological study, and that consists of study of the parcel and recommendations for potential future shovel test pits or other investigations if necessary. It's recommended that the board requires a stage 1A study for this application. The proposed reserve area is identified on the map as 7,000 square feet less than required in town code. It states about 522,000 as opposed to the required roughly 529,000. However, the notation and title states that the required 70% will be provided. The application form indicates that the reserve area would also be 75% as well. So the applicant should just clarify those discrepancies. Although it is intended to meet the open space design requirements, the application was submitted as a minor subdivision and the map indicates the same. The map should just, the applicants have submitted the correct application form and fee, but the map title should be just revised accordingly. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete pending the resolution of the aforementioned issues and the submission of the revisions. The planning board should discuss the proposed general layout of the lots and open space at this time and determine if it is appropriate. The planning department finds the general layout acceptable pending the submission of the recommended information and changes to the map. As this is an initial evaluation of a preliminary subdivision, it is also recommended that the planning board discuss at this time with the potential of public acquisition of this property. It is currently listed on the parcels recommended for acquisition under the community preservation project plan. The plan does recommend an open space subdivisions with lots clustered to the west, as is generally proposed by the applicants. It also calls for a trail corridor to be provided, which the two buffer areas proposed along the northern and southern sides of the lots could provide. Although there's no currently identified trails on either subject or adjoining properties. But just as mentioned, there are trails to the north, which could be connected to other trails further down south, which are highlighted in yellow across through the green patches of recreational open space. So this property is situated in an area of prime importance for the protection of the sole source aquifer. Many of the surrounding subdivisions contain numerous lots of roughly 1 acre and little, if any, reserve area. And they were the result of subdivisions that were predated to current open space subdivision requirements. Although the reduction in the generated sanitary flow and water usage by 3 lots in this area is a small number, the continued preservation of this large tract of land in the area of town, with mostly medium density residential development, could provide a significant benefit. The planning board should discuss with the applicant the potential for public acquisition and may wish to send comments to the town board with regards to this issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Very thorough report on that. We have Mr. Weaver. Would you like to speak on the application? Dan?
Sure. Sorry, I was just turning my camera and microphone on. Thank you, board, and thank you, Marco, for a thorough review. Couple comments. Main one I wanted to make is the reserve area. The calculations It is a 70% reserve area. The calculations in the title of the map in the upper right are incorrect. The total reserve area, 70% reserve area would be the 522,439. That is 70% of this lot. That is a typo in the title block, so that'll have to be amended. Yeah, basically my thought was similar to what Marco said. I did visit the site and believe that the flag strip points was the best access point, and then based my subdivision design off of that. I felt if we move as you move further south on Wayne Scott Northwest Road, the site distance gets worse, the slopes get steeper. The best and safest point for an access driveway is about where I put the flag strips, while still leaving a reserve area buffer with the neighboring lots to the north. I did try to maximize the flatter portion of the property closest to Wayne Scott Northwest Road. Other than that, that was my general thought to, this 3-lot clustered subdivision. And that's what I have for now. Let's see if the board has any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Ian?
Yeah. Yep, I'm here. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Mr. Weaver. Thanks, Marco. Really, I think overall this is a good design, and I think Marco did a great job of highlighting the issues. Sounds like the applicant agrees to correct a few things, but I'll quickly go through them just to affirm that I agree. First of all, I think we should declare lead agency, so I make a motion to declare lead agency.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of declaring lead agency?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. We're lead agency.
I think we should correct the yield map. I don't think there's any issues there, but we should do it properly. I think the buffers are good. The driveway, I believe, is in the right place. I certainly think it should be a common driveway as opposed to, 3 separate ones. And it sounds like that's the intention too, but just want to make sure of that. If we do have an engineer look at this project, I always think that driveway sight lines are something we should pay close attention to, as well as whatever plantings are going in that area to make sure that the visibility is good pulling out. I think sometimes there are places in town where landscaping gets in the way of visibility and safety, and I always want to make sure that that's not an issue. I think there needs to be an archaeological study, type 1A. I think we need to show building lots to exclude 20% slopes, correct the reserve area numbers. It sounds like that's just a typo and it will be corrected, or already is. Same thing with the title, that it's a subdivision and not a minor subdivision. As far as CPF goes, I think we should always notify CPF and the town board when a parcel that's on their list comes before us. I don't think I'm prepared to recommend acquisition necessarily. I think they can make that call. 70% reserved area here, and looking at the surrounding area, I don't think that these 3 lots are, the worst thing ever. So I think we should definitely let them know to make sure they know it's being subdivided and they can make a move if they want to. If they don't, I just thank the applicant for including the trails, room for the trails as part of their planned subdivision. I believe that's everything, but I'll wait to hear from the other board members.
Thanks very much, Ian. Marco, could you do me a favor and bring up the other photograph and broaden it a little bit? Also with the green, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Full disclosure, I can see my house from here, to quote somebody on that map. I know this parcel extremely well. When I read this, I was really surprised, frankly, to learn that it wasn't already CPF and wasn't already acquired. If you look, you see that it's in the prime water recharge area. It's surrounded by open space, and if you notice, there are, with the exception of the 4 lots to its immediate east, which are 4-acre lots, it's surrounded by 1 acre, 1.2 acre, but they're all basically 1-acre lots. That, as Marco's report indicates, the subdivision predated the concern that the town had for preserving the water recharge area. And I think that, you know, I mean, look, you're only talking about three houses. Talking about three houses on you know, what about however many acres that is, 12 acres, 13 acres. It seems to me to be, you know, it's not a lot of development, but it's more development in an area that is already taxing the aquifer considerably. And so I think that I agree with Ian pretty much down the line, except for that last point about the notifying the town. I think, from my point of view, this is something that should be considered for open space acquisition. Also, I think we do need to be careful about the access. That part of Northwest Road is curvy and and it pitches left and right and has changing elevations. We need to be especially careful if indeed the driveway is there. If the board disagrees with me on this, or, you know, I would like to run that issue. Again, it's just one man's opinion. But you know, the other issues, you know, I think between Marco and Ian and the applicant, they've all been covered well. So, you know, does anybody else have anything they want to say on this?
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree wholeheartedly with your position about, you know, where you state very well that, yeah, it's not a lot of development, but it's more development. And in my opinion, anytime we have a chance, if it's possible to restrain that development, I think we should take it, because a little here, a little there, it adds up. So yeah, I'm with you all the way on that point. So I just wanted to chime in and give my opinion about it.
Okay. You know, we don't have to go around the table completely, but if anybody else, unless you all want to, does anybody else have anything they want to add or say on this one?
I
I
do.
do.
I heard three voices at once, I think. So it's a free for all. Whoever wants to go first, please.
Well, I'll go. I
As
don't
you,
have much
Kathy,
else to say. I agree with you I agree with Ian. I agree with you about the, that we should ask the board to see if they can, you know, buy this land through CPF funding for the water protection qualities it offers. But I did want to say that I thought the applicant did a nice job laying it out. That you know, they did a good job there. And if the town is unsuccessful in its bid, that the driveway, where the driveway is proposed, which I think Dan mentioned would be to the north there. There are two points I'd just like to make about this. One is that the in the northern part of the lot where 2 meets 3, there's apparently a dip in the property. There are slopes there where the road would, you know, where a road might be. So I just want to take that into consideration, that those slopes have to be protected. And then on the, I'm sure Marco said this, but on lot 2, on the southern portion, I think that an easement should be proposed for that area so that those slopes are undisturbed, because I think they're greater than 20% slopes.
Just, I don't mean to interrupt, but we would recommend the establishment of building envelopes as opposed to an easement.
Okay, well, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes people encroach on the building envelope. Anyway, you start with the building envelope and then we can go from there. But in any case, I just wanted to make that point. Should the bid to purchase be unsuccessful? That's it.
Thanks very much. Ed, did I see or hear you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be really quick. You know, I agree with Ian's assessment, except that I do agree with you, Sam, that this is a prime candidate for acquisition using CPF funds, and I would urge a strong recommendation to the town board on that. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yeah, gotcha. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay. I mentioned that when the for sale sign went up on this property, which I guess was a year or more ago, I did have a conversation with Scott Wilson, and apparently the parcel had been reviewed, and there was an attempt to acquire it, but there was no agreement with the owner. But I still support sending and notifying them again that it's in for subdivision. I think Marco did a great job analyzing it. I think Dan did a great job laying it out. I have a question about there's a little triangle. Marco, if you bring up the survey.
You mean the one to the west side of Northwest Road?
Yeah, it's about 10,000 square feet, and it looks like it's owned by the same owner. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't believe it is, but sorry, Dan can speak to that probably.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that either. I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
I don't believe it is, but you can check.
Okay. So
it's not part of the subdivision, though, right?
Correct. It's not part of the subdivision.
Okay.
It is. I mean, in the survey, it says rod found, or it sounds like it was part of the survey, but we'll figure that out. If it is under the same ownership, it seems like it would make sense to include it in the reserved area as a separate reserve there.
Well, I mean, at the moment, it has been highlighted as recreational open space, so I believe this is probably a portion that was part of a probably different subdivision or a different project. So
Okay.
it's probably been highlighted on the survey just because it was nearby. That's my guess.
It's highlighted on the survey because there is a paper road and that intersects at that point. So that was why we highlighted it on the survey, because it was important as far as determining the boundaries for our parcel. It was important to determine where that intersection of Six Ball Highway and Wayne Scott Northwest Road are.
Okay. And then in terms of the reserved area, I wondered, ask Dan, has your client or the applicant considered who they would dedicate the reserve to?
Not at this time. We wanted to get feedback from the board first as to the design before we got too into, who would the reserve area be managed and acquired by. So I wanted to get your input first before I had spoke with the client about that.
Okay. I would just really echo what others have said, is that there's a lot of public town and county. There's a lot of public open space in this area. So, a town dedication to the town would seem to enhance that. That's all. That's all I've got. I agree with Ian on everything else. The type. Well, Sam, you'll ask the questions.
Yeah, I'll run the questions. We have actually a number of them. Before that was it, Randy?
That's it.
Okay, Sharon, did you have anything you wanted on this one?
No, I agree with what everybody's been saying. I mean, I think recommendation for acquisition would be great.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to run the questions. We've declared lead agency. If there's anybody, I'm just going to run the questions. If anybody says no, stop me. Should a revised yield map be provided? Which provides a 10% reserve area in accordance with requirements of town code be submitted?
Yes.
Okay. Does the board find the configuration and location reserved area acceptable? I think we were unanimous on that. Should building envelopes exclude areas of greater than 20% slopes be added to the map?
Yes.
Should the location of adjacent wells and sanitary systems be added to the map?
Yes.
Should a single common driveway serve each of the three proposed lots? And I think we all unanimous.
All of the three.
I'm sorry?
Three. Not each of the three, all of the three.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Randy. Actually, it's a very good point. Yeah, you
Okay.
want one single line. Is the proposed access point at Wainscott Northwest Road acceptable? And I think we were
Yes.
unanimous. Phase 1 archaeological study? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Should the title of the map be changed to identify it as preliminary subdivision map of Bayberry Estates?
Yes.
No
Yes.
objection. Should notations regarding size reserved areas be clarified? And the last one, which is the one I just want to make sure we're unanimous, or if not unanimous, that we know what the divide is. Should the board wish to send, does the board wish to send comments to the town board regarding possible public acquisition?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And Ian, I just want to make sure you're on board with that.
Yeah. To be clear, I'm certainly not opposed to the acquisition. I just, I want to stop short of taking the attitude that any development, we just want to buy every property. So I think we should certainly send comments. My comment would just say, hey, this is on your list. It's being subdivided. You should have a look. It sounds like the rest of you want to do a stronger endorsement. I'm not opposed to that. I just don't. I think that, they can make a move.
All right, very good. I just want to make sure that we're all, I don't want anybody's.
I'm certainly not opposed to acquisition. I just think it's often the easy answer to say, buy it. We probably can't buy everything. So
Okay. But this one, I think,
yep, fair enough.
That's pretty broad sentiment. So, all right, Mr. Weaver, anything else you want to add on this?
No, I think we're through. I want to thank the board and I want to thank the planning department for their work, but thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Dan.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. All right, next we move on to Southampton Hospital, freestanding emergency room. Eric, you're going to be taking this. Ian, this one's yours again. And I saw, there's Ms. Vale. Hi, Ms. Vale. Do you have anybody else on, you keep moving around on my screen. Is there anybody else that you have here for the application?
I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone tonight. Good evening.
Okay. Very good. Okay, in that case, Eric, take it away.
Okay, public hearing was held on November 17th and officially closed. The record was officially closed on December 1st. You had 10 members of the public speak at the public hearing, all voiced strong support for the project. You did receive one letter from the public, which expressed concerns over the proposed project. It was stated that the location is an inappropriate one for the proposed facility, and that other locations in the town would be superior locations. It was also questioned as to whether or not the facility would operate as a full-service emergency room with 24-hour emergency care. The town board, which acted as lead agency on this project, agreed to lease this location to Southampton Hospital for the provision of a new standalone emergency room facility. That is a requirement of that lease agreement. The town board has made a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. Additionally, the applicants have submitted a detailed narrative as well as state regulations that verify that the facility will provide emergency care. However, the board should consider the public's comments and determine whether or not they have been adequately addressed. As far as the wrap-up elements go, the Planning Commission found this to be a matter for local determination, and the Fire Marshal's Office has signed off on the project. So if the board agrees, then the application is ready for approval, and we have prepared a resolution of approval for the board for this evening.
Very well. Okay, Ms. Vale, do you have anything you wish to add?
Good evening, board members. Liz Vale, Farrell Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill. I would just like to add that it is, as I've stated before, a 911 receiving site, and it will be open 24/7 pursuant to the New York State Public Health Law rules and regulations.
Very well. Ian?
Yeah, I think that largely the public comments were all positive, and frankly, I was a little surprised that it was so weighted that way. Look, I think that everybody acknowledges this is something that the town needs. I was admittedly a little bit skeptical about the zone change, not knowing everything that went into this, finding the spot. Town board moved forward with that. There's a negative declaration. Again, it's something that we need. I think it's a good design. I think everything's in place, and I support the approval.
Very well. Does anyone have anything they wish to add? In that case, we have a resolution. Is it?
Yes, there was one.
You have it. If you have it,
email today. Yeah, I just have to pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Well, while Ian's doing that, Ms. Vale, do you happen to, off the top of your head, know how many ambulance trips this we presently have? It's like 1,600.
I did submit that in writing to the board.
I'm trying to remember.
But I have that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, which I know I just did.
Yeah,
So.
I do have that letter in front of me. Let me see if I can locate it. It was a lengthy letter.
Yes. It was like 1,500 to 1,600 trips, right?
It is here in writing somewhere, but it's
all right. No need to hold this up because of my idle curiosity. So
I'm ready, Sam. Whenever.
All right, go ahead. We can come back to that at the end.
Okay.
All right.
Southampton Hospital freestanding emergency room site plan special permit for approval. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
Is there a second? Kathy, you got that? All right, all those in favor? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? 7-0. Passed and carried.
Thank you, board members. I do have the number, Mr. Chairman. It was, there were in 2019, there were 2,700 ambulance transports from the 4 East Hampton ambulance agencies to Stony Brook, Southampton. And of those, we project approximately 1,620 to be treated at this facility.
That was the number. Okay, I just wanted to remind myself of that. All right, well, thank you very much.
Board members.
Okay, and again, we're not the lead agency on this. The town board is the lead agency, but we have now had our say on. So,
thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Good.
Next, we have Barrett clearing for cattle walk, okay. And also that's followed by 8 cattle walk. Marco, I'm sorry, Will, this is yours. We've got Ed is covering number 4 cattle walk, and Kathy's got number 8 cattle walk. Who's the applicant on this?
I think it's Richard Whalen.
All right, thank you. Mr. Whalen, would you mind if we melded 4 and 8 together and covered them both at one time?
Oh, no problem at all. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Very well. Okay, so all right, in that case, why don't you take the lead on this one, Will?
Thanks, Ed. Okay, I'm going to just share screen here. Okay, both of these applications are seeking approval to clear a certain amount of square feet of the property. 4 Cattle Walk is seeking to clear 5,584 square feet, and 8 Cattle Walk is seeking to clear 7,425 square feet. The purpose of the clearing is so that the applicant will be able to access the building envelope as dictated by the existing covenants and restrictions on foot to look at where the best areas are for building regarding sightlines and perspectives. And as you can kind of see on these plans here, this is meant to be the outline of the building envelope. This is showing like how they would access it via the clearing. Per Section E of Chapter 255 of Water Recharge Overlay District of the Town Code, lots greater than 40,000 square feet but less than 280,000 square feet, an area that are located within the Water Recharge Overlay District must have a maximum clearing equal to or less than 10,000 square feet plus 12.5% of the total lot area. Via this calculation, both of these applications would be well under that requirement at this, so they will not be an issue for these particular applications at this time. Both properties owned by the applicant are bound by the same declaration of covenants and restrictions dated February 2nd, 2005, outlining a specific building envelope to which future developments of the property will be bound. The building envelope for Cattle Walk is restricted to a size of 30,547 square feet, and 8 Cattle Walk is 13,060 square feet. As both sites exist now, there is no real way to gain access to it or the building envelope on foot. I went and looked at those areas, and they're pretty cluttered by trees and wooded. So there isn't really any way for them to consider where the best areas on site would be for building regarding sightlines and perspectives. In conclusion, the planning department recommends that both of these applications be allowed to move forward with the application, given that they are well under the maximum allowable clearing for a property in the water recharge overlay district with these proposed applications. The clearing will also allow them to best determine future planning for developments that will fit within the bindings of the existing covenants and restrictions.
Thank you for that double project. Mr. Whalen, would you like to add anything?
Just a little bit, Mr. Chairman. First of all, the applicant's name is Barad, pronunciation Gerald Barad.
I apologize to the applicant. I'm sorry if I mauled your name.
Just so you know, he owns the property immediately to the west, which has a house on it. That's about 11.8 acre parcel with access from Northwest Landing Road. It's 11 Northwest Landing Road. So he does have the adjoining property on the west side of both of these lots. And, the object here is, as Will indicated, it's pretty dense white pine forest. Most people come in and put in a building permit application and decide where they're going to build without really exploring the ground and kind of seeing where looks to be the best place to go. And the easiest and best way to do that is to have some clearing in there so you can move around, and maybe an architect or something can go in and take a look at the layout. We're obviously limited by building envelopes anyway, so you're sort of trying to decide where within the building envelope you can go. There's more flexibility on, I think it's 4 Catalog is the northerly one. Is that right, Will? I'm not
yes.
sure.
4 Catalog is north, 8 Catalog is south.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what I thought. So that's basically it. They rather than what people usually do, which is they look at a topographical map and know more than that before deciding where to build. They want to be able to go in there and kind of look around a little bit, and hopefully that will lead to a better site, planning site location for a house when one is built. There's no immediate plans to build on either lot right now. I think you might choose to build on at least one of them in the near future, but if you're going to do one, you might as well at least figure out where you can build on either of them. So that's the reason for the application.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Since we have Ed and Kathy, but since the numbers go Ed first, then Kathy, I'll let Ed take the lead on this.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does seem pretty straightforward, although I have to say it's a little unusual. In the time that I've been on the board, the couple of years I've been on the board, I haven't seen a request like this come across for our consideration before. So it's a little bit unusual. And I was kind of scratching my head as to why is this really entirely necessary? Richard, you've explained. I think you've explained it, I'm actually glad to hear that the owner of these 2 properties is a neighbor himself, right? So that makes me kind of feel better about the whole enterprise. I think, given that these lots are already restricted. There's a restrictive building envelope on it, and the clearing that's proposed looks like it would be where you would put a driveway anyway, right? I don't see any reason to not move ahead to do it unless other of my colleagues, including Kathy, feel otherwise.
Can I just make one comment, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Regarding why a lot of landowners don't realize you're not allowed to come in and clear on residential property more than a very minimal amount for health department things. You can't do clearing on a vacant residential lot without site plan approval. Lots of people don't know that, and so they do clear, and you never see those things because the people just go and clear the property and they never go through the process. In this case, the landowner asked us, if I want to clear, do I need any? And we said, yeah, you do. You need site plan approval. So that's why it's come in. Other people might just do this and, without permits, and that's why you wouldn't see them.
That's a good point.
And thank you for asking ahead of time rather than asking for forgiveness,
Yeah, that's the old adage of it's easier to obtain forgiveness than permission, but it's always better to get permission than to need forgiveness. So, all right. Did you have anything else you wanted on that one?
Nope.
How about you, Kathy?
No, I also want to thank Rick and the property owner for being cautious and not shooting first and asking questions later. We tend to deal with that more frequently, which is I'm sure why Ed was scratching his head. Most often people come in and the whole building envelope has been wiped clean, and it's particularly important because this is in a groundwater recharge overlay district. All the it's in all our special groundwater protection areas. So I'm very grateful to the applicant for doing this, and I think the access locations would mimic the driveway once it's in place. So I think it's well thought out, and I have no problem with it.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything on this?
I have a question, Sam, for Rick.
Go ahead.
Is the proposed area to be cleared inside the building envelope?
It is largely, although I will note, let me see here. I believe the proposed areas are within the building envelopes on both of them. I'm looking at number 4 first. I'm not sure that we're actually required. My recollection is that clearing is not limited to the building envelope, but obviously most of your clearing will probably be in the building envelope. But I think what's proposed right now, the clearing is within the building envelopes.
That's how I read it.
So on the other one as well, it's hard to tell where the north side of the building envelope is.
Randy, it's like it's right here, basically.
No, the other one. Well, sorry.
The other one. Yeah, it's kind of obscured by the line, but it's like right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does appear.
It's mostly confined to the building envelope, except for where they would have to access it from, basically.
Right, the driveway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay. And the clearing, if the clearing restriction on this would apply to both this pre-cleared area and I don't suppose the entire building envelope could be cleared based on the clearing requirements.
On lot 8, it's possible, Randy. I'd have to go back and check the numbers. Lot 8 has a lot of very steep terrain, and so there is a very small building envelope. So I'm not sure it's possible on lot 8 that you could have clearing beyond the building envelope. I mean, the clearing might exceed the building. I'm not saying that that's what he would do, but lot 8 is a very small building envelope. 8 catalog.
So that's my only thing is if this clearing will take place, and then at some point they'll come back in for more clearing. And
well, if they're doing it in conjunction with the house construction, they'll just need a building permit.
Yeah, they'll need a building permit. That won't be us.
Right.
And that building permit will take into account this clearing that's already been done, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? In that case,
Can I just add one thing about procedure?
Eric, is that you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. In fact, Will, can you mute for a sec? I think we're echoing.
Yeah.
Just something that we actually should have included in the memo, my fault, but just as far as procedure goes moving forward, this does qualify as a minor site plan. There's no structures, doesn't need health department approval or anything like that. So if the board does want, they can waive the public hearing requirement for both of these applications.
Okay, is that in the memo?
No, that's why I was correcting. I just forgot to include that.
I guess we are at that point since you raised the issue. So how does anybody feel about public hearing on this?
Not necessary.
Does anyone want a public hearing on this, on both of these or either of these?
No.
Hearing none?
I don't think it's necessary,
I don't think it's, I think,
especially as the same landowner as abuts both of them on the west side. I don't think
also,
it's necessary.
given the nature of what they are, attempting to
What
do.
the proposal is, yeah.
Right.
It's
All right. I'm not hearing anyone advocating for a public hearing, so we can add to our letter that the board will not require a public hearing for this. So, okay.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. All right, very well. Okay, we will now move on to Home Sweet Home. Our agenda that was published has this as a matter that Will Highland is covering, but actually it's Marco Wu's covering this one. I'm looking. Kathy, you're the board's point person on this, and is the applicant there? See the applicant there?
Yeah. Yes.
In case.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks. All right, Marco.
Okay. Just 1 second. Put it on the screen. I should have the site plan up at the moment. So just a reminder, this is a site plan application to convert an existing commercial warehouse into a self-storage facility. The revised plans seek to add an additional story to existing structures, increasing the gross floor area from 27,810 square feet to 56,406 square feet. I'll just zoom in a little bit so you could see the numbers. The parcel is located in Wainscott on the corner of George Drive and Montauk Highway. It is zone CI. It's 100% cleared. It's noted that there are two separate tax map parcels, both of which are for the pre-existing, which are used for the pre-existing zoning, pre-existing to zoning, and have been reviewed together in prior site plans. So areas B, C, D, and F are proposed to be 2 stories. Areas E and G are proposed to be 2 stories with an upper level mezzanine. And the applicant has proposed 476 individual storage units. The applicant has proposed that area E is to contain 2 new levels for a proposed elevator and lobby area. The elevator appears to serve as access to area G, which is to contain a new story and mezzanine. The town code does not define a mezzanine, but the chief building inspector has submitted a letter to the file detailing that the New York State Building Code does contain a size limitation for a proposed mezzanine that is attached to the memo. The maximum size of a proposed mezzanine is to be no greater than 1/2 of the floor area of the room it is located in, provided that the building or structure is equipped with an improved automatic sprinkler system. The existing 7,100 square foot building to contain the mezzanine would yield a maximum of 3,600 square feet, provided all exceptions are met. If the exceptions are not met, the total aggregate area is to be no greater than 1/3 of the floor area of the room. The applicant has submitted a site plan in which area G appears to follow the size limitation for the mezzanine. The applicant should just submit revised floor plan to demonstrate that the improvements will meet the interpretation provided by the chief building inspector and the town code. So as noted previously, the use of self-storage is also not defined under the town code. Other site plans with similar self-storage uses have been approved as facilities under unlisted non-nuisance industry. Similarly, there is not a defined parking requirement. The applicant is currently proposing 10 spaces, 3 spaces to the rear, 6 existing spaces at the front, and 1 new space at the front, which is reserved for handicapped accessibility. It is also proposed to remain are 3 40-foot by 12-foot truck loading spaces. I'll zoom in on the front here. At the main front entrance. So the planning board should note the following: that the rear parking area, these spaces are 9 feet by 18 feet, which does not meet the town code requirements of either being 10 feet by 18 feet or 9 feet by 20 feet. There are no paving details for those parking spaces, and the planning board would need to relax accessory structure setbacks for those spaces. All 6 of the spaces in the front parking area have an aisle width of 12 feet, whereas 24 is the minimum required under the town code. The handicapped accessible space appears to meet all its dimensional requirements, and the 3 truck loading spaces, which the applicant has stated which will remain for patrons, do not allow for the vehicles to turn around, meaning they can only accommodate one vehicle at a time without requiring another to back up. A traffic study was previously requested by the planning board, and one was submitted by the applicant. I'm just going to put the aerial very briefly, not briefly, but just so the board can just see where it's located. The study was prepared by VHB Engineering, dated June 9th, 2021, and that discusses the existing levels of site traffic, percentage increases to area traffic, the site access, and other traffic-related aspects. That's also attached to the memo as well. They reference weekday data from the New York State TDV, Historical Automatic Traffic Recorder, ATR, and that was taken 1.5 miles east of the project site in 2018, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Saturday counts were referenced from 2009, from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. The study utilized the Institute of Transportation, the ITE, trip manual for vehicle trips generated by a mini warehouse. There are multiple variables in how the trip generations could be generated, including square footage of the project, number of units available in the 100s, or number of units occupied, also in the 100s. The applicant, the study has chosen to apply the variable where the trips are generated based off of storage units occupied, and has applied that to at maximum occupancy, which is 476 proposed units at their peak hour trips. So observations were made to record existing site traffic and compare them to the proposed peak hour trips. That data was collected in May 2021 from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and from 1 a.m. to 4 p.m. The peak hours for the existing use were taken from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And from 2:45 p.m. to 3:45 p.m. The study indicates that the proposed project would generate 2 fewer trips during the AM peak hour and 1 fewer trip during the PM peak hour. The levels of traffic activity would be similar to that of the existing use and would not be a noticeable difference, the study claims. The study also notes that the southern loading zones is utilized to accommodate those box trucks, medium-sized box trucks in the truck loading area for the existing storage and moving company, with as many as 4 being observed in the area. Table C provided by the applicant is a percentage increase of the area traffic increase resulting from the proposed use. It states that the proposed development would be 1% or less of the total traffic on Montauk Highway and would not have a noticeable effect on the level of activity in the study area. It does not appear that the study contains any traffic measurements on Georgia Drive. The roadway serves as access to Wayne Scott Commercial Sandpit, Backgate Road, and a neighboring gas station, which is to the west, over here. The applicant states that Georgia Drive experiences a low level side street volume and that the site would not run into potential conflict with existing traffic activity. In contrast, the planning department notes that the existing western loading dock is about 5 feet from the right-of-way of Georgia Drive with the included non-permanent easement. So if I zoom in here, the western loading dock is about where that vehicle is right now. And it's very close to Georgia Drive. If I pull back up the site plan and zoom in, you can see on that western side as well, this would be Georgia Drive. That would be the western loading dock. And this dotted line here delineates the non-permanent easement in this that runs parallel to the property line here in this thicker black line. The applicant is proposing a concrete walkway within the non-permanent easement that may be up to 2 feet to the road right away, which is this concrete walkway here, which is to service the entrance on this side. Any nearby parking of vehicles for loading and unloading may potentially hinder, if not block, the flow of traffic. It is noted that the width of Georgia Drive varies from the intersection at Montauk Highway, to the intersection with Bathgate Drive. Although Georgia Drive is illustrated as a 70-foot right-of-way, it is unclear to the extent that the existing non-permanent easement and loading dock would reduce the available width of the road. The road is to support two-way traffic. However, there are no center lines or pull-off areas which could hinder the flow of traffic for visiting patrons. Future development and traffic flow of Georgia Drive is also subject to change as the town looks to examine redevelopment of the commercial sandpit, and as detailed in the Hamlet study, the Wayne Scott Hamlet study adopted by a town board. So you can see if I zoom out a little bit, this road is Georgia Drive that supports two-way traffic, and to the north of that, it goes directly to the Wayne Scott commercial sandpit. And making a left would be Bathgate. It is recommended that the applicant submit a revised narrative that details the proposed anticipated hours of operation, if public access is available at all hours, and any other details that may be requested by the planning board. The applicant has stated that the project is to remove the moving business and function solely, and is to function as a self-storage warehouse, solely as a self-storage warehouse. The existing moving trucks are also proposed to be eliminated. The planning board may wish to request as a condition of approval that the facility shall not have overnight parking or storage of company vehicles. The facility is anticipated to have a maximum of 2 staff members and shall prohibit the storage of hazardous materials in the units. The applicant has proposed a new IA sanitary system located to be in the parking lot in the front, as you can see in their sanitary plans. Zoom in a little further there. The test hole data should be provided to illustrate the distance to groundwater. Although the generated sanitary flow of the site should be low given the proposed use, the parcel is located close to Georgia Pond, which should be considered in regards to minimum separation to groundwater. The applicant also proposes 1 new dry well in the front parking lot. It is unclear if the site would be able to manage 2 inches of rainfall as required by Town of East Hampton, particularly the volume generated over the 29,000 square foot rooftop. It does not appear that the applicant is proposing any other drainage control structures, and it should demonstrate that it can sufficiently handle rain runoff from the principal structure. It is noted that Georgia Drive is prone to flooding, and there is only 1 drainage structure located near the neighboring parcel for rain runoff. So if you can see on Georgia Drive, that 1 drainage structure is located where my cursor is over here. And that's the only one that is noted on the site plan, and that you can observe at the site as servicing Georgia Drive. So although the building may be pre-existing, any rain runoff should be mitigated as much as possible as part of the site plan approval. There's no new information for in regards to lighting plans. The applicant has reduced the number of light fixtures, but as a reminder, given the close proximity of the loading docks to Georgia Drive, there will be some light that spills over onto the road. Lighting plan shows that the light levels near the western loading docks to be 0.9 and 1.7 foot candles. I believe that may be detailed here. So there are some light fixtures to be proposed by the western loading docks and also at another entrance further to the south. The town code provides that no light source shall be visible beyond the property line, including from roadways, and the board's lighting policy calls for 0.1 foot candles at the property line. The revised fixtures should be depicted on the revised elevation drawings as well. In regards to landscaping, no information has been submitted. No new information has been submitted for that aspect either. But the planning department does note that the trash enclosure should utilize the stockade fence as normally requested by the planning board. And also due to its location, it would also require relaxed rear yard setbacks. Its location to the rear here. Comments from the Chief Fire Marshal, Dave Brown, noted that the project's site plan is sufficient for fire protection purposes, but the project's revised floor plans will require additional review and approval from that office for ADA accessibility and fire protection. So in conclusion, based on the proposed use, location, and the size of the lot, the project will need to address multiple concerns mentioned above. Consideration should be given to address traffic flow, site usage, and site drainage.
Okay. Marco, again, thank you. That is a thorough report, deservedly so. Mr. Mackey, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian Matthews from Matthews, Kirsten, Cooley, 241 Panago Road, East Hampton, New York. Here on behalf of the applicant, again, Home Sweet Home. Here, or on this Zoom here with me as well, is our architect, Joe Neitzel, our civil engineer, Mark Pallotta, and our traffic engineer, Aaron Macte. And I would also echo Mr. Chairman's statements. Thank you again, Marco, for another thorough memo. And seeing as how I've had the opportunity to address the board on this application a number of times. So before I pass it off to the team to allow them to, go through their presentations and address whatever comments or concerns the board has and has been raised, just a few quick points that I wanted to address. First, I want to make sure that the board has had the opportunity to review the revised floor plans, showing the architectural plans showing the mezzanine. Those should have been included in the October submission with the revised engineering drawings. But to the extent that the board doesn't have them, we sent them to Marco yesterday to include in the file. So I just want to make sure the board is aware of that. Those revised plans show that the mezzanine as now proposed complies with the building inspector's latest written determination that Joe can speak to a little bit in a little bit more detail. And I do just want to note that myself and Joe Neitzel met with Ann Glenn and Fire Marshal Brown at the site just a couple of months ago to walk them through those revised plans to ensure that we were, maintaining compliance with her latest determination as to how large the mezzanine can be and what areas need to be taken into consideration when determining the overall permitted square footage of it. Second, as to the hours of operation, and we'll of course reduce this to writing so the board has it in its file, but the property is not going to be accessible at all hours. Instead, the office hours are going to be limited from 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock Monday through Saturday, and 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock on Sundays. And the storage access is going to be limited from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. So that's going to be the extent of the access to the property. And as a corollary, the applicant will also commit that there will be no overnight parking or storage of any kind of vehicles on site as well. They're addressing one of the concerns or issues that were raised in the latest memo. As to the remainder of the items that the team's going to get into, each of whom is more qualified than I to speak about them. I just will say that, we filed this application back in April 2020. I think we were in front of the board for the first time June or July 2020. And I think we've made every effort to address the comments as they've come in and addressed the board's concerns and have revised the applications and made whatever changes that, we think we're able to make and have been requested. And, while there's certain ancillary issues to be addressed, the parking, the parking setbacks, the dumpster enclosures, etc. We believe it's time at this juncture to start to put this down for a public hearing and start getting the public's input on this application. We think it's sufficiently tailored to allow the public to get an idea of what the applicant's proposing, and I think it's be beneficial for everybody to start to get that input from the public. So that's all I have for a quick moment. So I would like to turn it over to Joe Neitzel to first walk through the architectural plans and any comments or questions.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If it's okay, I would like to share my screen so we can look at some floor plans, if that's all right.
Go ahead. You're echoing badly. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that.
Does that any better?
I'm not sure. All right, go ahead. Forge ahead.
Okay. So, as the board can see from the floor plans that we previously submitted, our first floor basically goes unchanged from the previous submissions that the board has seen. Converting the existing spaces into self-storage use. As we approach the second level, again, relatively unchanged. What did change, and for everybody's recollection, the area here, as outlined in the civil drawings, which is area B, we added that second floor square footage back to the plan. So this area was revised from the previous submission. As we move along to the mezzanine plan, this is the area that we met with Ms. Glennon and Mr. Brown in depth with on site. We're proposing now a 3,448 square foot mezzanine, which is under the allowable square footage for a mezzanine using all exceptions. And as we discussed with Ms. Glennon and Mr. Brown on site, we will be providing all necessary exceptions, fire alarm, fire sprinkler system, to have this proposed mezzanine fully 100% code compliant. As we walk through the space, Mr. Brown and Ms. Glennon were pleased. I don't want to put words in their mouth and speak on their behalf, but they were happy with how we proposed this mezzanine to bring it into their determination of compliance. And they were satisfied with what we had proposed. As far as the exterior elevations, the facade, again, is still under the purview of the Architectural Review Board, but just for the purposes of the conversation, the facade is relatively unchanged from previous submissions to the board. We are proposing cladding the front two buildings with architectural shingle and repairing and replacing the roofs on the facility, as well as painting and repairing some of the existing panels on the rear of the building. Now, if I may, I would just like to show some existing facade photos that I've put together of the facility. As we can see, the appearance of the facility now is less than desirable. And as we come in with this application, we're proposing to reclad the entire front and side along Georgica that is visible from the street frontage to improve the building's overall appearance and, get away from the older metal vertical panels and the peeling paint and whatnot. So we're hoping that as part of our application to the Architectural Review Board, the board looks favorably towards us because we are trying to, make the building look more presentable than it currently exists. Again, another view that we have of the building as it exists currently, metal panel, existing parking in the front. And then my last image I have here is the proposed renovations. So again, metal panel on the front, some new storefront glazing, some hardy plank, some board and batten. We're trying to brighten up the facade, bring it and make it more presentable as you pass by along Montauk Highway. My last slide that I would like to show is just some interior photos of the facility as it currently exists today. You know, at previous hearings or presentations, the board voiced concern about, you know, the proposed square footage of the facility. And I would just like to make it a point and make the board aware that, you know, although we are increasing the square footage of this facility, as the facility currently operates and exists today, they are stacking, you know, 3 stories high of boxed goods in the back for customer storage, you know, stacked 2 to 3 containers deep. So as part of this application, the overall volume of storage capacity in the building is actually being reduced from what currently exists by way of including circulation, limiting the height on the storage units that the customers will be able to rent. So, you know, that was just something that I would like to bring to the board and make everybody aware of, that, you know, although we are adding square footage, the overall volume of the facility is actually decreasing from a capacity to store products or goods within it. Beyond that, I mean, that's kind of the level of information that I'd like to present at this point to the board. If anybody has questions as to anything I spoke about so far, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Neitzel, could you put up that screen of the front of the building, the rendering of what you're proposing to?
Sure.
Yeah, where are the 6 parking? Am I looking at in the right direction? Is this where the parking is supposed to be?
Yeah, so the 6 parking stalls are along the front facade here. They're in the existing location that they exist currently. So if I go back 1 slide, I tried to get the same view as best as possible. It was a bit difficult with street view, but the parking stalls currently exist along the front facade of Area C, and they will remain there as well.
Yeah, it just didn't look like, it doesn't look like, on the rendering anyway, it doesn't look like there are marked parking spaces or even, and I realize this is just a rendering, but it doesn't look like there's even room for 6 parking spaces, especially in length. But anyway, that's...
Yeah, it was more to accentuate the architectural feature of the proposed building.
That's fine.
What I can say, and Mr. Pilato will speak more to the parking and layout, is we're maintaining existing stalls that currently exist. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Neitzel, I have a question for you too. This is, you know, perhaps getting a little bit into the ARB's purview, but I ask this question every time we see a rendering. What is behind the plate glass sections on the left-hand, the western side of the building?
If you can bring up the rendering here. Yeah.
So that's insulated tinted glazing to meet energy code, and behind that would be, you know, either marketing material, signs, or some storage doors. It would not be accessible storage that you would see customers' product. It would be a finished wall of, I would say, storage partitions.
Like you often see in other self-storage facilities, you often see this sort of slice away of the building with the units behind it. Can you bring up the floor plan again?
Sure.
I want to show the rest of the board what we're talking about. So we're talking right there. So we're talking about there's sort of a hallway and then storage units just behind that hallway, right?
And these are what I call faux doors. You will never see a customer leave a door opened and loading a couch in that window, because the access to these 2 units here is from this main hallway. So this area here will be locked and closed off, and it'll always look clean, pristine, and no product or people's couch sitting in front of that. So it's always a clean visual when looking through the glazing.
Okay, but you're looking at and seeing the metal units themselves.
You would see the storage partitions, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Did we want to turn it over to Mark now to?
Brian, it's your time. Use it as you like. We will move on to Kathy for the board, unless you have anything
I think
else.
we wanted to, if we could, Mr. Chairman, have Mark Pilata from Key Civil Engineering to address a few matters also, and then we'll have.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Pilata, Key Civil Engineering. Office is at 664 Blue Point Road, Holtzville, New York. I'm the civil engineer for the project, and I was going to speak to the sanitary and drainage comments, as well as the lighting and landscaping that Marco had stated earlier. With regards to the sanitary system, there is a new proposed IA system, which would be in compliance with Suffolk County Health Department requirements. That system is proposed in the front. As stated earlier, the existing system would be removed. Regarding the test hole data, it is our intention to get a test hole done and make sure the system is designed per the Health Department standards. So at some point we will get that test completed, and the system will be adjusted if required. With regards to the drainage comments, there isn't much room on the site. As you saw from the aerial, the site is predominantly building with a parking area in the front. The fact that now we're putting in a new septic system also exacerbates the room, because there are separation requirements from the health department from drainage. But there is no increase in the impervious area proposed, so we were looking to maintain all the existing drainage patterns, which there is drainage in the front currently. The new driveway we're proposing was a relocation. We were proposing a new one to replace the one that was being removed in order to install the new IA system. With regards to lighting, as previously stated, it's kind of challenging when you have the building right near the property line. With regards to the lights that are spilling over, they are under canopy lights, strictly meant to provide lighting to the doorway. If the board would prefer that there are no lighting to comply, I guess that's something we could consider. It's our intention that every light, other than emergency lights, will be on timers and will go off. All the emergency lights will be on some sort of photocell. And regarding the landscaping, nothing's changed from our last submission, and we're willing to make the changes to the trash enclosure and have it include stockade fence. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks very much.
Can I have a question?
Randy, yeah.
I have a question for probably the architect, but maybe both the architect and engineer. Based on the floor plan and the site plan that we're looking at, you're still planning to use Georgica Drive and that loading dock on Georgica Drive as one of your primary entrances in and out of the facility. Is that right?
I would say that's not right. I would say the primary entrances are the 3 loading spaces at the front near the office.
But this is a major, the floor plans show an exit out on that loading dock, and the photographs you're showing show moving and storage trucks parked in Georgica Drive in the right of way.
I would say that and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the facility's current sort of use, while it's similar, it's a storage type use, the current facility tends to cater more to relocating people, so bigger trucks are involved, whereas the newer self-storage use is going to be more towards the
do-it-yourselfer sort of, bringing it to there. So I would think, and I can even let the traffic consultant speak to this, but I would think that the number of tractor trailers parked in Georgica Drive would be significantly reduced.
But you are still planning on using the public road basically for unloading and unloading, parking vehicles.
We plan on
currently
maintaining
there's a
the
loading
existing
dock.
loading dock. That's correct. We envision the primary loading area, as Mr. Pilata stated, to be the loading area on the south side of the facility, as that provides the most access to all storage units throughout the facility, and has the most loading available. So we envision that as the primary loading to be used for the facility for a customer that frequents the facility.
I don't see how.
Randy, I don't want to. We ordinarily don't do questions now.
I'll stick it.
I do want to allow clarification if board members have specific questions about elements of the plan. We'll go into it in a more fulsome way once it's a board discussion.
Okay, that's basically it. That I just wanted clarification that they intend to use Georgica Drive for temporary parking for loading and unloading.
Right. Okay. I just don't want to get into a whole. When we talk, we'll talk.
Right.
Ms. Matthews, anything else?
Yes, and then we just had Mark. Unless you were not done, we could pass it off to Aaron to deal with the traffic parking.
I was done, Matt.
Okay, great, thank you. So then we just have our traffic consultant, who I believe wanted to make a quick presentation to the board as well.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
For the record, Aaron McTay with VHB Engineering, offices at 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge, New York. So we did prepare the traffic study. It was summarized at the onset in pretty good detail, so I won't repeat. I'll try not to repeat too much. I did just want to provide a little bit of extra perspective on the traffic generation and what it means. The self-storage use is very passive in terms of traffic generation, which, something that has a larger floor area or a larger number of units will still generate very modest levels of traffic. And in this case, the maximum that it's looking at based on the ITE data is equivalent to one car every 4 minutes. And generally, that's not something that anyone would be able to perceive. Furthermore, as it was characterized in the study and repeated, that represents, compared to the level of traffic that historical data says is present on Montauk Highway, a 1% increase. Generally, the rule of thumb is, as we're looking for things that would possibly have an impact, we start looking for 5% increases. Then we start, when we can isolate a 5% increase in area traffic, we can say like an intersection may have an impact and require some rigorous analysis to determine what impact and what mitigation would potentially be necessary. So this falls well short of that threshold that we use as a rule of thumb, and that's not even sort of taking into account the fact that we're not really looking at a lot of new traffic at all, because the use will generate virtually the same as the existing use. So it was mentioned, and in the traffic study, we didn't provide data for the amount of activity that was on Georgica Drive. We did collect it, so I do have that information in our file. I did take a look at it earlier today, and in order to figure out exactly how much traffic is going up and down, and it was less than 200 trips during the peak hours we were out there, which may seem like a lot, but that's actually a very slight amount of traffic. Also, that was collected at a point south of the driveway for the gas station to the west. So, it stands to reason that quite a bit of that traffic was likely associated with the activity for the gas station itself. So, regardless, the operation of this, with the traffic being so slight and the traffic on Georgica Drive being similarly small, it's difficult to see how there would be an impact on operating conditions in the study area. Speaking to what Mr. Pilato was talking about, the existing use is a commercial operation. So, if you look in the photos and if you look in
But I gotta go. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. If you look at the photos, you look at Google Earth and stuff like that, you see, there's a number of box trucks that are all present at once associated with the moving company. These certainly use Georgia Drive. They use the right of way to park and load and unload. But those are part of a commercial operation which wouldn't be present. Again, I can't emphasize enough how passive these uses are. People bring their stuff once and generally leave it for extended periods of time. And people also, unless they have a significant, significant loads, don't necessarily rent box trucks. They'll bring, pickup trucks or whatever, multiple trips, etc. Over the course of time to get their items in and out. And as a result, whereas we see 3 and 4 box trucks associated with the moving and storage company, those won't be present simultaneously. It's much more likely that 1 or 2, or most likely none, would be present at any one time for a self-storage use for individuals. And as a result of that, with the loading zones that are accessed from the Montauk Highway driveway, it's very likely that the right of way for Georgia Drive will be utilized to a much lesser extent than it currently is. So I think that that's a benefit relative to the existing use in terms of the operation and safety of traffic and parking. Like I said, the rest of the information was generally summarized at the beginning, but I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding our study or anything else regarding traffic and parking.
Okay. Very well, Mr. Matthews. Anything else from your?
I think that's it for us, Mr. Chairman. I know we've just we thought it was important to give the actual experts, architects, engineers, everybody a chance to finally get some FaceTime with the board and to give a presentation, and certainly to walk through now that we've made what we think are a number of changes to the application. I'm going to address a lot of the concerns that have been raised from the time this application was initially on. Here. So at this point in time, I think we'd obviously like to turn it over to the board and just, we think, but I think you can see, the application where it is. Just to reiterate that I think it is, the application's pretty far along, and I just reiterate my point that I think it is beneficial for everybody at this point in time to start getting public input. But at this point in time, we turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the board.
Thanks very much. Okay, Kathy, this is yours. Right?
Yes, it is.
Cool.
Yes, thank you. Well, I want to thank the applicant and the professional consultants who have taken time to explain all this work to us. It's a very big project. And I understand that it's been some time since we first looked at this, but I think that given the need to get that mezzanine piece cleared up, and that memo was available to us in late summer, I feel like we're moving along as best we can, especially given the restrictions the pandemic has put on most of us.
Well, I don't disagree there, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to report that I feel like this application is still incomplete, and therefore it cannot be scheduled for public hearing, even though I understand that we would benefit from hearing from the public regarding this project. I have several concerns, and I'll try to do them in a sensible order. I appreciate understanding the hours of use, although it'll be a 7-day-a-week use, and it will. The employees will only not be there one day, which means that of those parking spaces, 2 of them will be occupied for 6 days, and one day all parking spaces will be free. I think I'm grateful that you're planning to remove the septic system that exists. I think that's helpful. This project, this business is in the Georgia Pond watershed. Georgia Pond is an impaired water body, and I think anytime that we can get those bad old systems out of the ground, and knowing you're going to actually remove it and not just abandon it is very good to know. I'm very concerned, though, that this is a 30,000 square foot building, and I don't think that the drainage that's been proposed is sufficient to deal with the stormwater runoff. And we need we need filters, we need catch basins. I think the whole drainage system needs to be revised. I thank you for not, conceding to not have any overnight parking. I understand that the lighting is a problem because this building is built out and in some instances over the property line, so that the code requirements are hard to comply with because the building itself is over the property line. So of course the lighting is going to be also. I would just ask you to find some creative way to do that. Maybe light the ground instead of having illumination from a higher level, to put low lights along the walkways, because you will need some lighting out there, but it shouldn't come from the top, from the where it would normally over a door. I think you just have to light the ground. Now, I have to say that I was a little, I'm grateful that you submitted your traffic study, but when we first examined this, one of the points that I made quite specifically was that the traffic study needed to incorporate the neighboring lot, which is the Wainscott Commercial Center, and impacts that will be happening along Georgia Drive. To unify these two things. We can't look at these sites in isolation. Now, I recognize that it's not the applicant's responsibility to do a traffic study for the Wainscott Commercial Center, but there's been no mention at all made of the existing cement trucks that already access the cement facility that's presently occupied and using that road on the site to the north, and that application is currently before this board. So we would be remiss in our responsibilities not to be folding in the impacts of both of these applications on the roadway there. I understand that the engineer has used traditionally accepted assessments of travel times and so forth. But in our experience here, which is part of our planning board's responsibility as well, is that this is not some, self-storage place behind a supermarket or something. There's so little room out here, and commercial space is so valuable. There are a lot of contractors that use self-storage units like this to store equipment, materials, and so forth. And I had a personal experience about a month and a half ago. I went to a self-storage unit in Southampton for a friend, and I tried to back out, and some company electric van had parked right in front of me while he ran in to get some supplies. And I had to wait for him to move his van to get out of the way. I think that this is going to be used a lot more frequently than you may anticipate, which is great news for your business, but it's not so great for this traffic and circulation plan that you've submitted. I understand you have an easement, which was a really sweet deal for $10. The town gave you an easement on some of these on the Georgia Drive, but that doesn't obviate the need for us to make sure that passage can be done safely. I'm The shortest distance between 2 points is the way everyone tries to get their stuff done. If you have stuff in a self-storage unit, as I just described, you want to get in and get out. And the easiest way to get into that building is going to be to pull up on Georgia Drive and run in from there. People aren't going to want to make the turn in off Montauk Highway, find the space, back out and do the whole 9 yards. They're going to go in there and they're going to exit on Bathgate. And I just don't, and given the variety and the size of vehicles that would access that road and the narrowness of that road, along with the busy gas station to the west of it, and there's actually a lot of traffic that comes along Bathgate. I use it myself sometimes, accessing the liquor store, Breadzilla. There's a bunch of stuff there. So I'm not convinced that that's that the number of vehicle trips that you're predicting and the circulation pattern that you're anticipating is realistic. I would like for us to hire an engineer to review this study and give us an opinion about it. I'm not a traffic engineer. I can only apply what I know as a person that lives in this community and frequents that area. Let's see. I think one of the things that concerns me in terms of the mezzanine, which I understand, is permissible under state code, but to indicate that the present parking scheme and number of employees there is equivalent to having 476 units, I think is, we don't have any specific guidance on this, but I think it's a misperception because that's like having 476 employees or 476 clients, where right now it's a moving and storage company. And yes, they have crates stacked up, and I've had stuff stored there myself, and Home Sweet Home has moved me from time to time in the interest of full disclosure 20 years ago. But that it's not the same as having individual people have individual access to 476 units. I recognize that, generally when people rent these places, they store things for a long period of time, but I think that we need to anticipate that there are other uses, as I described earlier, that certain contractors, that's going to be a very appealing site for that reason, because it's right on Montauk Highway. Any of these Western, contractors coming in the trade parade are going to be happy to rent a space there and, leave their tools and so forth, so they don't have to haul them back and forth every day. So I would like to see us get an opinion from our engineer, and I'll be interested to hear what the rest of my colleagues have to say. I do want to thank Marco for a really thorough report here and the examination of this. It's a big project. It's a really big project.
It is. I
wanted to just propose one other thing.
Yeah.
That one thing you might consider is just eliminating the loading dock on the west side. That was where I was headed with that discussion. If you were to eliminate that, I think that would make this a little more feasible. The bottom line is it's just too big for the property. I think if you could downsize it a little bit, we'd have a better chance of working with you. I just don't think there's sufficient parking on it presently.
Thanks, Kathy. This is a big project, and I think that it's worthwhile to go around the table on this. So, Ed, if you would, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, sure, of course. So where to begin on this? I'll say the things that I've said at every time that we've been together talking about this project. And, while, your perception Mr. Matthews, may be that you've moved, the ball forward on certain issues you have, but I think, you haven't heard the primary concern of many of us, which is what Kathy just voiced. It's too big. And listen, I appreciate the fact that you've got, the owner has this very large building that he wants to optimize. I mean, it makes business sense, of course. But 476 units on Montauk Highway in an area that's already stressed just feels like way too much, and for some of the reasons that Kathy outlined. I was going to make the same point that, it's true that kind of generically speaking, the ins and outs of a typical self-storage facility are fairly infrequent, right? But I really do believe that there will be many contractors, particularly given this location of this facility right on the highway. The contractors will be storing stuff there and coming in and out frequently. So I think, the scale of it is just enormous. In every respect, I feel like you're pushing it, right? You kind of lucked out on the mezzanine definition a bit, right? I'm not sure. While Anne and the fire marshal may have determined that, okay, I could sort of see where you could do this. It feels to me like you're getting a third floor basically for free. I'm not sure that the state regulations really anticipated this kind of use, but whatever. You kind of manage that one. The building is way too big. It goes over the lot line in places. You scored on that one. The loading dock is located where it is, right on Georgica Drive, which is much busier than any of your traffic studies have revealed, and is going to become busier when the property behind this is developed out. The parking is substandard. The sizes of the slots are substandard, and there are too few of them. I just can't imagine, having been to this site as a customer for longer term storage, a number of times, and being very familiar with the building, I can't see how that central loading dock is really going to function for a building of that size, and how people are going to get in and out of there, and when that's going to be the primary parking area as well. It just feels, guys, too big. I appreciate your desire to sort of optimize the economic opportunity here, but it just feels like this is in a stressed part of town and is another project that will be perceived by everybody as pushing things just a little too far. I think that, Kathy's suggestion that we have our engineer look at the traffic stuff, I think there are going to be more trips than your report anticipates, for the reasons that I outlined and that Kathy had said it before me. I think these are really the key issues. The other stuff we can deal with, drainage, lighting problems, that kind of stuff, we can get to solutions, but scale of the project and impacts on, loading and unloading off of a dock on a public street are things that you have just failed repeatedly to do anything about. The scale's too big, guys. It just is.
Thanks very much. Lou? You're muted, Lou. Lou, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with Ed and Kathy. I think it is too big. I think they've expanded the building, or they've kept the building expanded to the far reaches of the perimeters of the property, and I think that's a big problem. I don't have, really any problems with the mezzanine or even with the 476 units. And I do agree, and I understand and recognize that it is a problem. It will be a problem in terms of higher traffic. As Kathy said, she made a good point that these storage units are going to be used not by your typical homeowner who needs to store excess stuff that they have, but these workmen who come into town from the West. So I don't want to go on too long, because I think Kathy and Ed said it very well, but I have the same issues. But my primary issues is the parking. I think the parking is insufficient. And that loading dock on Georgica Drive is a big problem for me. And I, to reiterate again, I think the building is just too big, too wide. That's all I have.
Thank you, Lou. Ian?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief because I think a lot's been said. I will sort of reiterate some of the points. Obviously, the mezzanine was a big deal for me the last time. I think that issue's been resolved. So that is that. But I have the same concerns about parking and access. I think that the spots in front just don't meet our standards. I think best case scenario, it's one-way traffic there with one entrance/exit. And I don't know how that works. I think that the parking especially now this is being open to the public, as Kathy sort of talked about, it's different when there's individuals not in coordination in and out, as opposed to a company who's organizing trips and things like that. So I think the change of use is significant there. If you can show you can meet parking requirements, that would go a long way for me, but I'm very concerned. And I think the traffic, like everyone else has said on Georgica Drive, we know it might increase. So at the very least, I think you have to include that in the traffic study. But even if you show that the traffic works, I think that loading dock is hugely problematic. And even if this were a new commercial building, I don't think we'd approve that. But going to sort of individual people trying to figure out where to enter and exit move their stuff is even more problematic. Drainage was another concern of mine. I think you addressed that. I will say that the applicant sort of implied, and is absolutely right, that this is an existing building. So, it changes the way that I look at that as opposed to something you're just designing right now. But that said, I think this change of use from a business that's operating as one entity to, over 400 different people who may not be there all the time, but certainly there's going to be multiple individuals trying to use the site at the same time. And I don't think that works with the space you have available for parking and movement. So I don't think the application's complete. I think we need to show standard parking. I think we need to do more traffic study on Georgica Drive. And I think, frankly, we need to do away with the loading dock on the west, or at least have some explanation as to how that will work with traffic on Georgica Drive.
Thank you very much, Ian. Randy?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what's been said. I'd add that I have some photographs in the file from July of this year when I was getting gas in that gas station, and there was 6 inches of water in Georgica Drive, all the way almost from the highway to the end of this building, from the loading dock over to the gas station. So I don't think we have a drainage plan. I agree. I like the idea that you guys take a look at redesigning this without a loading dock on Georgica Drive. I just think it's unworkable. We've got it's a public street. I don't know what this non-permanent easement says, but it just doesn't work. I also agree with the comments about parking. So basically, I think we're pretty much all of a similar mind. I don't think the existing traffic study, as has been said, I don't think the traffic study has done justice to what's already going on there and what could potentially go on there in the future. So that's it for me.
Thanks very much, Randy. Sharon, anything to add?
Nothing to add, just, to reiterate, definitely the parking is short, and the loading dock on Georgica is problematic. I mean, same thing everybody else to say. It's too big of a project for where it is.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll add. I'll echo and maybe add a couple things. The problem that we have as a board is that we don't have a we don't have a defined use of self-storage. So to a large degree, we have to come up with parking requirements that are rational, not arbitrary. I think that we can do that if we compare this self-storage facility to other self-storage facilities in the town. The parking is plainly inadequate compared to those. Leaving aside the number, it's 476. It's a lot of units. So I think that just on that basis, there's a problem. And I also think that, as everybody has said, the traffic study gives very short shrift to a very short street. The Georgia Good Drive, in its 50 yards of length, it handles an enormous amount of traffic. For one thing, you've got the parking lot. I'm sorry, forgive me, the garage, the gasoline station. You've got the gasoline station there, but you also have it's the primary access for the cement business that's in the what will one day be the Wayne Scott Commercial Center. So, I mean, I know as planners, as a planning board, it's our duty to look forward and see what's coming. And, we, as everybody knows, we've been dealing with the Wayne Scott Commercial Center for the last several weeks, and that's going to have impacts. But we don't even have to do that at this point. We can just look at what's there right now. Right now, what's there is a cement plant, and I know that cement plant has a continual flow of trucks coming and going on that very short Georgia Drive. Also, Bathgate Road, which is right parallel to Route 27, just north of it, runs from Georgia Road to Wayne Scott Northwest Road, and it is intended to take traffic off of 27 over there, which, as anyone who drives over there knows, the traffic light backs things up, especially in the summer. And Bathgate's supposed to take traffic off of 27, and it does that through Georgia. So I think the traffic study, I will welcome us bringing a consultant in to review this, but I would encourage the applicants to strongly reconsider what the analysis that they're giving to Georgia Drive. It's a short road, but it's significant. And a lot of members on the board have said do something about, in other words, get rid of the loading dock. I think that's a good place to start. So with that, I'm going to run through the questions. And again, I think there's unanimity on the board on this. So if anybody wants to, say something contrary, please do. Should the applicant submit revised floor plans to demonstrate that the mezzanine meets the interpretation provided by the chief building inspector? And anyone disagrees with that? Okay.
Just to note that those were put in, and those were submitted.
Right. Thank you for mentioning that, Brian. We try to enforce a rule that if you didn't get it into us ahead of time, we can't consider it now, but you'll be coming back. So when you come back.
I think they had been, and maybe they were, maybe they got lost in the shuffle. So I appreciate Marco making them available. So they are in, and obviously everybody saw them, and we'll have the prints. I don't know, they were with the civil plans, but what have you, but we'll have the full scale prints in as well. So I do thank Marco and the board for taking a look at those and making those available to share and for you to look at.
And we'll have some more time with them. All right, should the applicant submit a revised narrative regarding hours of anticipated operation, where the public access is available all hours and other dated elements? And I know we heard that spoken, and I would expect that we'll get that in writing. So,
right.
Should the applicant submit a revised parking layout, including details such as aisle width, traffic flow indicators, traffic control measures, and parking space measurements? Again, I believe I'm speaking for the board when I say you understand that's a primary concern of ours. Should the applicant provide copies of the non-permanent easement and the shared 20-foot access easement as depicted on the site plan to the planning board?
Yes.
And I think we all would agree with that, and I'm sure you understand the need for that. Planning board may wish to discuss the applicant's provided traffic study, which we have done. Should applicants submit revised drainage plans that demonstrate that the site can sufficiently handle the rain runoff, and I believe that's being taken care of, is taken care of. Board members or anybody want to add anything on that? Applicant understands that one.
Sam, is that something we would ask our engineer to look at too?
We haven't talked about that. Is that something that we would want? I mean, it's I could understand, wanting to do that. It is. It's a very large roof. I mean, I think I heard an estimate that it's like a 30,000 square foot roof.
Can I address that very quickly, Mr. Chairman?
Go
Drainage.
ahead.
The issue of the drainage, and I understand it certainly. I understand it being the board's concern. Obviously, been the board for a number of years, and I know it's a concern, and as it is for all municipal boards. However, I think one thing that's important to note here, it kind of applies across the board with the parking and the traffic and the parking spaces, but that this exists, this 30,000, 29,000 square foot roof, what have you, that exists presently. And there are steps that are being taken to improve the drainage on site. But you can only do so much. And so I think the critical component here is I understand wanting to understand drainage and see if there's ways that can be improved upon. Certainly, it's important. The question for that I think is critical is this change of use where there's no increase in impervious structures? Is this change of use taking a drainage problem that is X and making it Y? If the drainage problem, to the extent that there is one, is not increasing, then that's more of a kind of infrastructure issue for the town to handle on Georgia versus is this. Whereas if this change of use is not exacerbating any problem, then that's kind of where it is. The building exists. The building's not being made bigger. The roof isn't being made bigger. So unless there's somehow more drainage that's required for individual storage versus group, more longer term storage, which I don't believe is the case, I think that's how that question should get answered. So I just wanted to.
I have a comment about that.
That's fine. After you give your comment, I'd like to hear from Eric.
Okay, well,
on that. But go ahead,
what I'd like to say is that I understand Mr. Matthews' point. It makes good sense, but it is an existing building. It's an old building, and just as the sanitary needs to be upgraded, I feel it's pretty clear that drainage for the existing building wasn't sufficient, and that this is a chance to upgrade all of those systems. Especially given the impaired water body into which most of this water is draining. It's a new world now in terms of our discharge and what's coming into these surface water bodies and the aquifer ultimately. So, and then I don't know what Eric wants to say, but
I'd like to hear from Eric on it because it's a lot of this is going to in bringing in a consulting engineer, which is what we would have to do here. There are considerations that's important to hear from the planning department on. So, Eric, if you would.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll start off. Your question was about, getting an engineer to review the drainage. But I'll start off by saying I totally get Mr. Matthews' point. It's a question of whether or not there's a nexus between, this project and this request, where there is no change in the total overall roofed area of the building, which, by the way, you were right. It's about a little over 29,000 square feet. Of roofed area. The existing drainage, I'm sure, is not adequate, as evidenced by the fact that Randy pointed out of the ponding on Georgica Drive. I think, first of all, I don't think it hurts to get to have the applicants have an engineer provide the numbers that show whether or not there's a deficiency. It's a simple calculation that sort of relates to having a consulting engineer look at it. It's a simple matter of math. You take a volume of water, you take a roofed area, an area of impervious surface, measure it for a 2-inch rainfall, look at the drainage structures that are in the area already or proposed, and see whether or not the volume of the structures is adequate to handle the runoff. So as far as, having an consulting engineer review that, we would first need numbers from an engineer from the applicants, and they're basically going to do the same math that those engineers would do. So that really, it's really not arbitrary or up to interpretation. It's a simple matter of math, but somebody has to do those calculations first. And I don't think it's onerous on the applicants to ask them to do that, even though I do understand that, they're not adding roofed areas. What I would say, though, is that, they are proposing a different use. They, as of right now, although the board seems kind of unanimous that they don't want to see that western loading dock being used. But as of right now, the applicants are still proposing to use it, and they're proposing to use it in a different manner. Right now they have large trucks that use that loading dock. They can coordinate that. Presumably, this new use where you're going to have members of the public who are renting out these units probably queuing up to use that loading dock, potentially queuing up on Georgia Drive. If that is going to be incapacitated by the existing conditions, in other words, underwater, in which case that's going to affect the access, to the loading areas. Is that, if intermittently the western loading dock is going to be underwater, along with Georgia Drive, and, tenants of this facility are not going to be able to use that loading dock, that's going to place more need on that front area, which again is in very close proximity to Montauk Highway, in the highest trafficked area within town, on the largest road. So I do think, although I again will reiterate his point, they're not proposing to increase the impervious surfaces and roofed areas on the site, but they are proposing a new business that is going to operate and function and be accessed by different people in a different way. And if the existing conditions are going to impede what they're proposing as an access pattern, then I think that is pertinent to your review at this point when you're considering, whether or not to permit that new special permit use on the site.
Well, thank you. We needed that guidance, so appreciate that. And I think we may have to work something into our letter on that. So, all right.
Sam, does that mean we're gonna see about drainage and parking and traffic with the engineer, or I'm just trying to get the scope of the engineer's request?
Well, right now you don't have thorough drainage calculations, so you don't have anything for the engineer to review. That was, that's sort of the short way of saying the long-winded, thing I just went through. You do have a traffic study that analyzed the parking and the traffic patterns. That is something that I think we can have a consulting engineer review for this application, for a number of reasons that I won't get into. It is unique when we have a consulting engineer review site plans. It's not something that is done universally anymore, since we don't have a in-house engineer, but I think that we can get an outside engineer to review the traffic study that was submitted, give their opinion on it, whether or not they think there are deficiencies or inaccuracies. But as far as the drainage goes, you need a drainage plan submitted for a consulting engineer to review the drainage. So that's what I was getting at, is that I don't think it's onerous to ask for that. And I think once we do get that, we'll look at the math and kind of go from there.
Is that two alternative presentation? In other words, if they use the loading dock and if they don't use the loading dock, or is it?
That'll affect whether or not you feel that the drainage issues and the runoff issues are, the extent to which they are a problem with the application. But, as Mr. Matthews said, they're not changing the roofed areas here.
Right.
So the calculation is going to be the same. It's pure math.
Yeah.
Right, but I think
That was
Sam
the,
brings up an important point that, I think it would be useful for the applicant to understand. I think if they eliminate that western loading dock, it takes away a number of these concerns. It doesn't take away the drainage concerns in general, but it addresses the queuing and that access issue there. So I think it's a useful concept to have them, to ask them to do both assessments, to ask the applicant to provide both assessments.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think the main point that I was trying to make with respect to the drainage, it wasn't so much, and we could talk to the engineers about, and talk to the client, of course, about getting all that done. I think my main point in just talking about it is that, the building exists as it is, and the drainage is what it is. And even if you operate under the assumption, and I don't know the answer to this, is that drainage on the property is a problem, if we're not exacerbating that problem, then that I think that's the relevant analysis. But we can figure that out. And I think it's in that sense, in that same vein, and not to open up a whole can of worms, but with respect to the traffic study, I know very well that there's the application to subdivide the pit behind. But any parking and traffic concerns with respect to that application will get handled in the context of that application. And if we have a traffic study that shows that this change of use is having what our traffic engineer talked about was no noticeable impact and no actual impact or increase in traffic, then what happens on someone else's property, if there's a traffic increase for other properties, or if the gas station doesn't open up from 5 to 12 and instead goes 24 hours and they increase, for our purposes, the relevant concern is, what if this change of use, is it increasing the traffic? And we have the study that says it's not.
Brian, it isn't so much that, first of all, the issue of whether the development of the Wayne Scott Commercial Center, is something that should be considered by you. And at least I was trying to make the point that, that's a debatable issue, but I don't think you need to even address to my own analysis. You don't even need to address it, because the traffic study has already failed to address the fact that as it exists right now, the cement truck traffic is enormous on that street. I mean, there's a lot of it, and also the traffic study doesn't address the purposes for which Bathgate Road is there. So it's really, to my mind, it's not so much about taking into consideration what may or may not happen down the road, so to speak, with the commercial center, Wayne Scott Commercial Center, is as it is with the conditions as they exist right now. And I just think that the traffic study doesn't do a good job at that, and needs to be redone. One other thing that occurred to me when we talk about queuing up people, customers for the facility, does your intention or the applicant's intention to have different hours during summer months and winter months? Because I'm just thinking,
I don't believe that that's the intention. As mentioned, that when we gave the hours of operation, it would be. Right. But I think it was, I can go back and look, but I think it was 7 to 9 for the store, just for access, and the office was going to be 9 to 6, 9 to 4 on Sunday.
Maybe it's just the month of December and the shortening of the days, and thinking that in the summertime when there's more people here and more use, that you might be expanding the hours. But if it's,
I don't think that's.
It was 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
regardless of
9
the
p.m. daily, but and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the staff Monday through Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking that because it's a mini self-storage operation, and maybe in the summertime you want to let people get their I don't know, the lawn furniture that's in storage, get at it more hours.
They can get there between 7 and 9.
They'll have to they'll have to tough it. All right. Okay. There was one last question on the list, and I suspect that I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Should the
Understood. Yeah. And so I guess, I understand the answer to that question. I guess the last thing, not to beat that horse and reiterate it too much, but, I think, there's a lot of topics that we're discussing about here. And that's why I think it's beneficial to everybody. And I would just like to reiterate the request that we move this forward to a public hearing as soon as possible. I think it can only be helpful. Maybe the public loves it. Maybe the public has concerns that we haven't thought about. Maybe the public loves the idea of cleaning up this property. I think it's going to be in everyone's interest to not to say that the board is, but to speculate about what that view would be, and let's actually hear it.
Well, again, perhaps because we don't have town code requirements regarding self-storage, which isn't, it's not your fault. But because of that, I think this board is very careful and treads the issues that are involved very carefully, and because every time we have to make sure we get it right.
You're kind of reinventing the wheel every time. I can understand that, certainly. But I think to me that means all the more reason. Let's bring all the stakeholders, and the public would certainly be, an important one of those people to the table as soon as possible. If we're not operating under clear parameters, you have precedent, and I think, the talk about the parking being insufficient, we don't have to get into too much, but we are right in line with parking spaces per square footage for all the other storage spaces in town. And that's in one of the prior memos, but since there is this kind of, in many ways, again, it's no one's fault, this ad hoc determination each time a self-storage comes in.
Well, it isn't ad hoc. Ad hoc makes it sound kind of.
And I didn't mean that in any kind of disparaging way, certainly.
But it's just not arbitrary.
It's not. You're not operating under 100-foot wetland setbacks and everything else. It's going to have all the more reason to try and get people to the table as soon as possible. I think it makes the analysis easier and better for everybody. You can really get a full picture. Whereas if you're saying, we have this thing of 100 feet, 150 feet, and now we'll hear from the public, but we know what parameters we're operating under. When you don't have that laid out for you, for better or for worse, because the town code doesn't have it, to me, I would think it's better to get people in sooner rather than later.
No, well, let's try. Let me wrap it up here. Let's. I'm sorry, Kathy. Kathy.
No, I just wanted to say, I agree wholeheartedly, but our policy is we can't go to public hearing till the application is deemed complete, and you're not complete tonight. So as soon as you're complete, we'll go to public hearing.
Yeah, that's it. And you know what it is that we need. So what we're looking for here. All right, very well. We have two more matters, but sorry about that. Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Appreciate it, and to all your consultants.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
You too.
Right. We have two wireless facilities. Eric, you're the lead person on these. These are both we reports from Cityscape. And Ian, you've got the one on Daniels Hole Road, and Kathy, you've got the one at Town Hall. So we'll do Daniels Hole Road first. Ian, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Matt Lindahl, you're here on that one? On one of them?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and which one are you here on?
This is called Wainscott Northwest Road, the East Hampton Airport.
Okay, that's the Daniels Hole Road. That's fine. And who's here on the other one, just so that we know?
T-Mobile.
Yeah, thank you. On the one at Town Hall. Who has that one?
I think it's Ryan Bork. I think he's handling it.
Okay, I don't see
names.
There's only phone numbers there, so
yeah, I know that's the problem. I'm dealing with phone numbers. But all right, why don't you take off on the one in Wainscott first?
Sure.
Hello.
Yeah. I'll read. I'll give a briefing on Cityscape's report.
Very good.
Which is rather brief. Ostensibly, this is just a swap out of equipment. Hopefully you can see this elevation plan. You may remember that the board recently, there's an existing 130-foot lattice tower. This is over off of Daniels Hole Road by the airport. That tower is very aged and decrepit and structurally unsound. You recently had an application from Verizon to construct basically an identical tower, same height, same lattice design. That was approved, and Verizon has added their equipment on it. This is an application from New Singular Wireless or AT&T to move their equipment from the old tower and onto the new tower. So basically what they'll be doing is moving, well, they'll be on the new tower installing 12 new antennas, 12 remote radio heads, cabling, and other accessories. They're proposing to use the existing ground level equipment cabinet. They submitted an RF engineer's report that demonstrates FCC compliance, and they also submitted a structural analysis that demonstrates that the new tower can take the load of the new equipment. So basically, your wireless consultant Cityscape finds this to be no substantial change and qualifies an eligible facility request under federal law and recommends that you approve it. The planning department has no objection to that either. It's basically just moving equipment from one old tower to one new tower, which was really the idea of the approval of the new tower. So.
Okay. And I'm sorry, as the applicant, Ms. Lindbaum, you should be heard on this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You were breaking up a little bit.
I must be on a wireless phone. Did you sorry about that. Did you have anything you wanted to add on this?
No, just if you guys have any questions, I'm here and willing to answer them best to my ability. And no, but I don't have anything to add.
All right, very well. Thank you. Okay, Ian, this one's yours.
I was going to say, just to add one other thing, you should have a resolution of approval on this.
Do I?
I didn't see it on my agenda, though.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't have one.
Jody, do we have any floating around?
All right, well, we can put it on for next week.
All right, let's do that.
I didn't get it.
Okay, we'll do it. Either one, either of the phones. Jody, neither of them? Okay, all right. Well, I don't want to predict what's going to happen with the next one, but. All right, we'll get this one on for next week. Ian, did you have anything? Well, go ahead. Tell us what you have on this. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think Eric pretty much said it. I think this application really is doing what we intended to have happen. Move from the old tower onto the new one. So makes sense. Thanks, Eric, for your analysis. And just want to say I'm grateful to finally have a wireless consultant to make these seemingly simple things, make us know that they're simple. So I support that.
It's a better universe for us.
Yeah. But I support this application.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah, go, Lynn, do you have a question?
I know that the hope for the future is that somebody's going to be responsible for taking down these old towers that are no longer in use. Do we have a candidate here to take down the old one?
He's standing on the corner of Northwest Road with an axe.
I think it might be town. The town might be on the hook for this one.
Well, honestly, I don't.
I'd like us to ask city. What are they called? Cityscape.
Cityscape.
I'd like to ask them to include that consideration. What is proposed to happen to this used tower?
Well, they're just going to ask our town attorney's office. It's probably something. I can look through the lease agreement. I believe it was originally with AT&T for this tower, but I can look through the lease agreement. I don't know that there's a provision in there for removal of the tower, but this is town property. But we can look into it further. But Cityscape isn't going to know that. That's going to be contingent upon the lease agreement and the contractual agreements between the town and the carrier.
Aren't we putting that in the new lease agreements that the entity that builds them is responsible for removing them? I think that goes in the new leases, but maybe not in this one.
I don't know, but that would be something that would then be in the lease agreement with Verizon, not this carrier, because Verizon built the new tower.
Yeah.
So
it also, Randy, it implicates a zillion other issues too.
Well, we discussed that when we first talked about the new tower going in, to say what's going to happen to the old one. And they did say they would take it down, but toward that end, all the other carriers had to get off that tower. So I think that, I mean, I don't know where, I think Randy brings up a good point that where is that written, you know, so it's just not abandoned and just standing there because it's in parkland, you know, that's.
I'll look into it. I think this actually removes all carriers from the old tower, so it would be ready to come down.
Oh, is that right? This is the
police
last
has moved as well. So
okay. Well,
grab your apps, Randy.
Really good point. Yeah.
All right. Listen, do I have any? I don't have any questions attached to the cityscape report. So
we just have to
just deem it ready. Just approve it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Anybody think it's not approved? What do we deem it, complete or approved already? What's our magic?
Say it's ready for approval.
Is it ready for approval?
Ready for approval, and we'd like to know when they're going to take, who's going to take the tower down and when.
Well, that's a stuff. Leave that for another day.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's not for us for today. All right, we all agree, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we get an answer to that question before we vote?
I'm sorry?
I'm with Kathy. Can we get an answer to the removal question before?
Guys, that's going to be in the lease. That's not something we have access to right this second.
And it's something that we're on, you know, there'll have to be an application that'll come before us to take the damn thing down. So when that happens, you know, we'll review that. I would think that it'd have to come before us.
Well, it would probably be just a building permit for demolition of the structure, but we'll look into it. I mean, it's not pertinent to whether or not you think the swap out, which first of all,
no, it's not. It's not pertinent at all. And the only reason I think that it's coming before us is just because it's a phone tower.
but it's nice to know that you'll follow up and find out who is, you know, how that was resolved, because we did discuss it when we first approved the tower, the replacement tower.
Okay.
So there's got to be somewhere.
Okay. Let's go on to the most beautiful one in town, at Town Hall.
Sure.
Do we have Mr. Smith? Are you here on that, or?
Yes, I'm here.
Very well, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna screen share just an elevation of the tower, which I'm sitting basically right under right now. So basically, this is another antenna swap out. This has all the major carriers and the police department on it. They're proposing to remove 9 antennas and replace them with 6 new antennas, add 9 remote radio heads, and then some other equipment. They're also replacing a equipment cabinet, at ground level. So again, Cityscape verified that FCC compliance was met. The applicant submitted a structural analysis. In fact, actually, the original one they submitted had not accounted for a recent modification. Cityscape asked that they submit a revised one that was submitted. It verifies that the tower is structurally capable of the modification. So basically, same deal, no substantial change, and it's an eligible facility request under federal law, and it is recommended that you approve the modification.
Okay, very good. Does the applicant have anything they want to add on that?
No, I don't. Again, if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to answer them.
Thanks very much. Okay, Kathy, it's yours, right?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add. It's just there's an additional 3, I forget, antennas or, the net gain is 3 tower mounts. So, it's not prettying it up much, but it's not overloading, it's not going to be that noticeable to have 3 more mounts. Although I think the whole thing looks god awful, but that's another story.
Do we all agree that it's ready for approval?
Yes.
Ready.
All around? Anyone not? Okay. approved. We'll get these on for resolutions next week. Before we move into the regular meeting, thank you, by the way, thank you to Mr. Limbaugh and Mr. Smith for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we move into the regular meeting, we have 3 items on scheduled public hearings. Everybody, please remember that we have a session tomorrow with the Suffolk County Planning Commission, and they're going to talk about their jurisdiction and how matters get before them. I got an email. I don't know if this is still the case, but Ian and Ed and Lou were they were getting bounce backs from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. So maybe you can check your email and make sure that you're getting it. And if not,
do you have to register for this thing?
No, it's not registered. No, you're gonna get a Zoom chat. Presumably.
What do you mean we got to bounce back?
The folks over at the Suffolk County Planning Commission, I'm quickly looking for the note that I got yesterday or earlier today from Christine DeSalvo. She's the administrator over there. She told me that I asked her to send out Zoom notices, and she said that she had emails bounce back from Lou, Ian, and Ed.
I got Christine DeSalvo.
You got Christine's, yeah. It's.
Can you just forward it, Sam? Just forward it, right?
Yeah, I'll try and do that if I'm.
I'll do it right now. I'll send it to the whole board.
All right, thanks very much. Yeah, send it to everybody, including. We're going to have planning staff on as well as planning board members, and we'll get points for our online training.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, that's Sylvia told me that she was arranging for that. So,
okay.
Look, we all need to make sure that we have all our training in by the end of the year, and also the personnel departments, human resources training that we've gotten emails on also. So
okay.
I'll mention it again next week, and you can spend December 29th, busily complying with all the those deadlines. So, all right. So we'll see each other in 14 short hours. But let's do the first one, which is Wayne Scott Sewing Society. And Randy, that's yours. Yeah, you're muted, Randy. This is to schedule the public hearing on the chapel.
In the interest of expediting, let me see if I have that.
I have it.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy. Why don't you?
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Not at all.
Go ahead.
In the matter of the application of Wayne Scott Sewing Society site plan, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-200-1-12 to schedule a public hearing for Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, this matter may be heard. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and be televised on local TV, Channel 22, and available for live stream. Public will not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. I read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, pass and carry. 92 South Euclid, and Sharon, that's yours.
Yeah. All right. In the matter of the application of 92 South Euclid Avenue, site plan, tax map number 300-49-1-15. This is to schedule a public hearing, which will take place on Wednesday, January 12th at 2022 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised by local TV. LTV channel 22 and available for live streaming. The public will not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. And finally, Twinkle Farm. And Lou, that's yours.
In the matter of the application of Twinkle Farm Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-193-2-9.7, to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing is hereby scheduled Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider this said application. Public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. I've read the resolution. I move for its adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Okay. Thank you all. Long meeting, but productive again. 9:06 p.m. Does anyone have anything want to add? New business? Anything we haven't covered?
Tim, what time's the planning commission thing?
11 a.m. Right?
Yep.
11 a.m.
You're going to send out the details, Eric, right?
I'm trying to do it right now if my email will unfreeze, but I'm going to send it tonight.
You know what? If you don't listen, check your email, and if you don't get it, send Eric something, and maybe give him an alternative email address, because I know that sometimes some of us have a problem with the town email. So
Okay. Yeah, if you don't get it within 15 minutes, let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
Hey, have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Can I get a motion from someone?
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you, LTV again, as always. Thank you, Jody.
Night, everybody. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jody. Okay.